22.2. When prescribing exercise to an individual, no matter what specific group they may be in, the exercise needs to suit that individual so that they can gain the full benefits from the exercise. Exercise can be prescribed for many different circumstances. For instance, for rehabilitation purposes, after a client has either had an injury like a leg fracture or recently experienced a heart attack. In addition, exercise can be prescribed to help resolve problems within a medical condition. For example, increasing lung capacity to help improve the depth of breathing for someone that suffers with asthma, so that they can breathe more easily. However, there are generic recommendations of prescribed exercise that everybody can take part in, such as adults should do about 150 minutes of moderate aerobic exercise per week, and plus 2 days of strengthening exercises. And then for children, they should do 60 minutes of physical activity per day. The prescribed exercises need to abide to the FIT principle in order for the client to know exactly what they are doing in terms of how many times a week they complete the exercises, so the frequency, what intensity they need to train at, the duration of the training session, so the time it takes to do the session, and then what type of session they'll be completing. So will it be interval, resistance, weight training, or continuous? The subsections of the FIT principle can be adjusted according to what the client needs. So they can adapt the frequency, they can adapt the intensity of the training session, so that the training session suits what they want to improve. When people first take part in physical activity, parts of their physical health might be poor. This might include issues to do with their skeletal system, muscular system, and cardiovascular system, and their respiratory system as well. By putting more strain on these issues during exercise could create some serious health risks for the client. So contraindications are reasons why you shouldn't or should be more cautious when doing exercise. However, there are two types of contraindications, absolute and relative. Absolute contraindications can be conditions where it is completely unsafe for the client to take part in physical activity, so they should definitely not do exercise. This is due to the fact that it could make their medical condition progressively worse. However, relative contraindications are conditions or previous medical history to do with the client, but exercise can be completed. The instructor just has to be cautious when doing exercise with this client. There are some exercises that are absolute contraindications, such as donkey kicks, as these try to override the muscle spindle apparatus, which could cause injuries occurring to the client. That's why specific groups with certain medical conditions shouldn't do certain exercises, as this could make their conditions worse. So some contraindications for older adults consist of like hypertension, so things to do with their blood pressure and their heart, so respiratory and cardiovascular conditions. But also some contraindications could be due to joint or bone conditions as well. These include medical conditions such as arthritis, osteoporosis. But not all of these contraindications are absolute contraindications. They can be relative as well, so the person doing the exercise just has to be cautious so that they don't make their conditions worse. There are some contraindications to do with the exercises that some participants may do, such as if a participant has hypertension, so their blood pressure is consistently high, so that means the force that is exerted on the artery walls is flowing at a really high pressure, then they shouldn't do exercises such as isometric contractions and exercises that are above the heart, so because the blood flow has to work harder against gravity, so it puts more strain on the heart and then in turn increases the blood pressure. But with the isometric contraction exercises, these exercises squash the arteries and veins, therefore blocks the blood flow around the body in certain areas where the muscles are contracting. But because the heart is still pumping out oxygenated blood, then the pressure will build up as the blood can't flow through the narrowed gap, causing more strain and pressure to be exerted on the artery walls. Also, if the person has cardiovascular conditions, they should avoid high-intensity methods of training, such as interval training. This is because a large volume of blood needs to get to the working muscles, but without raising the blood pressure so that it's not at dangerous levels. So people with atherosclerosis would be at a greater risk if they did high-intensity exercise. This is because there is a build-up of LDL cholesterol within the arteries, which is fatty deposits. So this narrows the lumen, so the passage the blood can flow through is smaller. So if there needs to be a high volume of blood going to the working muscles during high-intensity exercise, then the blood pressure will rise due to a large volume of blood trying to get through a narrow gap. Likewise, if a person has arteriosclerosis, then this means that the walls of the arteries harden, which then inhibits the arteries to expand to allow the blood to flow through, so that the pressure of the blood stays low. But because the arteries can't expand, then the blood flowing through has to flow through a smaller gap, which increases the blood pressure as there is a resistance to flow. So it'd be dangerous for someone with these conditions to do high-intensity exercise, as it will increase their blood pressure even more, which puts more strain on their heart as well and could lead to more serious impacts on their health. So bone conditions and joint conditions such as arthritis and osteoporosis, these are relative contraindications. This is because these conditions consist of the participant experiencing high levels of pain when completing certain movements. However, to make these conditions better, the person needs to keep themselves mobile in order for bone density to increase, so that their bones become less brittle. And then with the arthritis, so that they experience less pain because their joints will be stronger. So the exercises an older adult can do to make sure that their body is healthy, so their heart is healthy, as well as their bones and joints, is walking, resistance exercises, balance exercises, and flexibility exercises. These help keep the body mobile so that the person still has independence, so that they don't rely on other people to do everyday things. So I would suggest, as an endurance activity, walking 3 times a week at an intensity of 60 to 70% of their maximum heart rate. So working at an RPE of about 5 or 6. But the duration of the walk doesn't have to be that long, about 15 minutes. As this helps with increasing bone density, as more stress is being placed on the bones, increasing the osteoblast stimulation. Also, endurance activities help lower the resting heart rate over time, which will help decrease blood pressure. Next, I'd suggest doing resistance exercises 3 times a week, so 3 sets of 7 reps per exercise, but working at an RP of 5 and 6 again. But I would suggest only using body-weighted exercises. This is so that they don't put too much strain on their joints and muscles and bones. However, this helps with increasing joint strength and bone strength so that they stay mobile, and this helps with arthritis as well. Next, balance exercises help decrease the pain that someone might get in their lower back, so therefore increasing mobility that someone might have. So I'd suggest doing the balance exercises twice a week and 3 sets of 7 reps per exercise, but working at an RP of about 5, so not a really high intensity. Next, flexibility exercises just help with increasing the range of movement someone has. So making sure that their ligaments and tendons are pliable, so that they can do everyday things such as walking, getting up out of a chair, and stuff like that. So I suggest doing flexibility exercises twice a week, 3 sets of 7 reps of each exercise, but working at a low intensity of an RPE of about 5 or 4. And making sure that they work all areas of their body, such as their hamstrings, quadriceps, shoulders, and arms.